Imagine a world where we weren't the only humans. Not in some distant science fiction story, but right here, on Earth. Just tens of thousands of years ago, our ancestors walked the same paths, breathed the same air, alongside entirely different human species. Some looked like us, others didn't. And one of them? Well, they've almost disappeared from history. But not entirely. In 2010, deep inside a cold Siberian cave, scientists uncovered a tiny bone fragment, no bigger than a coin. It wasn't much, but when they examined its DNA, what they found shook the foundations of human history. It wasn't Homo sapiens. It wasn't Neanderthal. It was something else. A completely forgotten branch of the human family tree. One we didn't even know existed. They're now called the Denisovans, a name borrowed from the cave where they were found. And to this day, we've never seen a full skeleton, never recovered a skull, and yet we know they once thrived. So who were they? Where did they go? And why is almost no one talking about them? Let's uncover the haunting mystery of the Denisovans, a human species that vanished without a trace. Denisovans lived during the same period as Neanderthals and early Homo sapiens, possibly as far back as 200,000 years ago. But here's the catch. We've barely found any of their remains. Just a few bone fragments and teeth. That's it. And yet, from that sliver of evidence, DNA has revealed a stunning secret. Denisovans weren't just another offshoot of humanity. They were genetically distinct, yet close enough to interbreed with both us and Neanderthals. That means some of us, especially people from parts of Asia, Oceania, and even the Pacific Islands, still carry Denisovan DNA today. If you have roots in Papua New Guinea or Tibet, you might be walking around with a literal ghost species inside you. But why do we know so little about them? Well, part of the reason is frustratingly simple. Preservation. Fossils don't last forever, and climates like tropical jungles or humid mountains, where Denisovans may have lived, are terrible at preserving bones. So entire civilizations, entire populations, could have vanished, and left behind almost nothing. Makes you wonder, right? How many stories have been lost to time? The little we do know paints a picture that's both fascinating and eerie. Denisovans might have been more advanced than we ever expected. Some genetic traits they passed on, like the ability to survive at extreme altitudes, are still present in modern Tibetans. Think about that. A long-extinct human species gave modern people the ability to live on the roof of the world. Now here's where things get really strange. In 2018, researchers discovered something that sounded like science fiction. A 13-year-old girl who was half Neanderthal, half Denisovan. The first known hybrid. That discovery wasn't just rare. It rewrote everything we thought we knew about ancient human relationships.
These weren't isolated species living in separate caves. They were interacting, sharing genes, maybe even ideas. Could they have shared languages, tools, culture? It's an open question. And maybe the more important one is, why did they vanish and we didn't? Was it climate change, disease, violent conflict, or something more subtle, like simply being outnumbered? One theory suggests Denisovans may have lived in smaller, scattered groups and eventually were absorbed into other populations. Not wiped out by war, but slowly faded into the gene pool of modern humans. Not a disappearance exactly, but a slow, silent blending. Still, their near-total absence from the fossil record remains a giant red flag. The fact that we discovered them only through genetics and not some dramatic skeleton or cave painting should make us wonder, what else is hiding in our DNA? Because Denisovans might not be the only lost species. In fact, there are genetic ghosts in African populations that don't match any known human ancestor. That means there may be other human species, never seen, never named, that once lived, thrived, and disappeared without a trace. Think about that. Entire chapters of human history erased. No ruins, no tools, just shadows in our genes. And here's something even creepier. Some of these lost species may have existed only 30,000 or even 20,000 years ago. That's after we had invented art, after we buried our dead. Possibly after we started forming language and belief systems. In other words, they weren't primitive cavemen. They were humans, just not us. Now, there's a moment where you have to stop and ask, what does it even mean to be human? Is it brain size, speech, art, Or is it something deeper? The Denisovans challenge all of that. They force us to consider that our version of humanity isn't the only one that could have flourished. Maybe if history had taken a different turn, they would be telling our story. And here's the kicker. We've likely only scratched the surface. The Denisova cave? It's still being excavated. And similar caves across Asia have barely been explored. Every fragment, every tooth, every scrape of bone has the potential to reveal another chapter in the story of us. So next time you think about prehistoric humans, don't just picture hairy men with clubs chasing mammoths. Picture a world filled with other humans. Different, but not lesser. Some with broader faces, some with stronger limbs, some who survived in the coldest winds or climbed the highest mountains. All of them walking toward a future they'd never see, but that we now live in. They're still with us, in our genes, in our lungs, in our ancient memories. Forgotten? Yes, but not entirely lost. If this blew your mind even a little bit, give the video a like and hit subscribe, because we're only just beginning to uncover the lost stories of our species, and who knows what we'll find next.